Assalamualaikum. I bid to our fellow lecturer, Dr. Azlina. So, in this video, me and my group mate, which consists of myself, Fatihah binti Muhammad FIRDAUS, NASUHA binti ALIAS, SITI HAJAR binti GHAZALI, and also NURUL ATIQAH binti RAMLI, are going to present our research proposal on our chosen topic, which is called The Rise of the Unheard, an oral history of ESL teachers' challenges and strategies in enhancing independent reading skill for special needs students. First and foremost, I would like to thank Dr. Azlina for giving us the opportunity to execute our research project, specifically amongst the minority groups, because as an ESL teachers who had experience in teaching special needs education, I think this is such an important areas that we would like to explore, especially in reading skills, because as we all know, reading is one of the fundamental skill for lifelong learning, and coming from a private sector as well, the objective of the schools is to enhance and to produce a lifelong learners which just not excel academically but also can be adapt and can be absorbed into the social settings amongst our Malaysian communities. And for your information, Doctor, the pictures that were used throughout the videos were taken from a real life classroom setting when I used to taught senior EIP classes back at the private sector, which consists no more than 10 students per class, I would say, with the presence of teacher assistant. And each of the students have different milestones from the age of 4 to 7 or 8 and various learning difficulties. So, as we all know that independent reading is a fundamental skill for lifelong learning. However, for students with special needs, acquiring and enhancing their independent reading skills present challenges. While we were reading throughout our reference and research articles, we found that some of the various problems that they face includes linguistic and cognitive barriers, which limits the process of their classroom learning. For instance, as you can see from the picture I've pasted at the right side of this slide, it was taken during one of the phonics classes. So phonics is the subject that focus on the sounds of the alphabet. So the sound that we wanted to focus during that class was the S sounds. As you can see, there are visual aids provided on the board along with the different colored markers that I've used to focus on the word S for that class. So it shows how ESL teachers play an important role in developing effective methods to support reading progress, but somehow restricted due to limited resources and inadequate training that tailored to the student needs. For example, the pictures that I've used for this class, I actually made them by myself, but I follow the syllabus of the Jolly Phonics. There are 4 groups, if I'm not mistaken, and S was grouped at the first class, which also include of the word S, A, T, P, I, and N. So the syllabus only provided the arrangement of the words, but there are no specific pictures or specific words that start with the S that we wanted to focus and that we have to cover. So as a way to cater to this issue, I've used one of the learning apps which is called Twinkle, and I referred to the worksheets that focus on the word S. So the words that are focused or that are presented in the worksheet, I've started to search for the pictures and decided to choose 6 words because there are only 6 students in the class. So I think it is adequate for them. And yeah, it's just referring to the worksheets given. So it shows how our research are currently very limited, even though in our country, in Malaysia, the how do I say, the education for special needs students has the quality of special education has gradually increased. Next, I will continue on our problem statements. We have decided to focus on two statements. The first one being limited research on ESL teaching for special needs students in private institutions. While we were reading through our research articles as for our references, we found that most research conducted focuses on government schools where teaching approaches and strategies differ significantly, which also caused by the number of students in the class. As we all know, the quality of special education has gradually increased. However, the amount of schools that promoted this special education is still limited in per state and per area. This resulted in the rise of private institutions that focuses on special needs center, even though the amount of students per class is much more smaller than the ones in the government school. Next, government school follow the national special educations, offering more structured instruction, a more structured learning curricula, adaptive material, and also teacher training. Private schools, on the other hand, uses more flexible, research-based materials with assistive technology, specifically during phonics or classes that includes memorizing of visual and personalized learning. However, these advanced approaches may be limited to due to finance and resource constraints. So this consistency in reading instruction raises concerns about literacy development, long-term academic success, and equal opportunities for students with special needs. So we found that there is a crucial need to evaluate these differences in order to identify effective learning strategies and develop policies to bridge this gap. This is to ensure that all special education students in Malaysia receive a high quality reading instruction in order to enhance independent readers that tailor to the needs amongst lifelong learners. To illustrate, Doctor, I've also provided two types of learning curricula. The first one is the excerpts from the Carolina curriculum for preschoolers with special needs, the second edition written by Nancy Johnson, Bonnie Hacker, and Susan Attamir. So there is a massive difference in terms of the focuses, the objective of the lessons. As you can see in these slides, there is a very vague instruction on how to cater to students in terms of literacy development. So it shows how to make extra effort to promote skill acquisition, and it also suggests to include some of the therapies, some of the professionals help in order to make the lesson more meaningful. However, there is no actually a certain topics or subject that needs to be focused on during certain classes. There is only stated the the end of the product which the student have to achieve based on their milestones. And for me, the milestones stages also very limited. It only stated until 4 to 5 years old. Even though the students there, the EIP students there, are mostly aged from the age of 5 to or 4 to 8. On the other hand, the dokumen standard curriculum dan pentaksiran, curriculum standard pendidikan khas for preschoolers year 1 and year 2 are much more structured, strategically written for the reference of special needs teachers, where each tab, and each table categorize the learning standard, content standard, and also the objective that needs to be achieved by the students at the end of the lessons. So a much more structured curriculum are more beneficial than a rather vague learning curricula such as the Carolina, because teachers have to make extra effort in order to achieve all the learning objective given without the exact content or learning standard that they need to focus on. I think that's all from me. I will now pass the presentation to Suha.
Thank you, Fatihah. So for our study, we are going to focus on ESL teacher challenges and teaching strategies in enhancing independent reading skills for special needs students with learning disabilities. So for our study, the skills that we are going to focus is independent reading skills. So independent reading is a fundamental skill that support lifelong learning. However, for the special needs students, they often struggle with linguistic, cognitive, as well as emotional barriers, which make it challenging for them to acquire independent reading on their own. Therefore, ESL teachers plays an important role in addressing these challenges. However, ESL teachers themselves are often constrained by their own challenges such as limited resources as well as inadequate training toward the special needs students. Thus, in our study, we are going to focus on ESL teacher challenges as well as the teaching strategies used to support the reading skills among the special needs students. Moving on to the next one is the research questions. So for this study, we have come up with two research questions. So the first one is, what are the challenges ESL teachers encounter when teaching mixed ability students with special needs in becoming independent readers? And for the second one, how do ESL teachers adapt their teaching approach and strategies in order to cater special needs learners in becoming independent readers? So, for these research questions, we also have two research objectives. The first one is to identify the challenges ESL students encounter when ESL teachers encounter when teaching mixed ability students with special needs in becoming independent readers. And for the second research objective is to identify teaching approach and strategies used by ESL teachers in order to cater special needs learners in becoming independent readers. Next, for the significance of the study, this study will benefit special needs students, ESL teachers, special education department, and Ministry of Education. So first thing first, this study will benefit special needs students. So by identifying the effective teaching strategies used by the teachers in this study, it will contribute to more effective reading intervention that can be applied during the teaching and learning session. So the interventions, which is adapted from the teaching strategies, will somehow help the students to enhance and improve their reading skills. Next, this study will benefit ESL teachers. So it will benefit ESL teachers by providing insight into challenges faced by the teachers when teaching mixed ability students with special needs in becoming independent readers. So the outcome of this study will help the teachers, especially the ESL teachers, to identify the challenges encountered in enhancing independent reading skills among the special needs students. Next, this study also will provide practical strategies and approach that can be used as a guidance for teachers, ESL teachers, in supporting reading progress of special needs students. So the strategies set by the teachers in this study can be used as guidance for ESL teachers or other ESL educators to improve their teaching method and develop their ability to support reading progress among the special needs students. Last but not least, this study also will benefit Special Education Department and Ministry of Education by providing insight to the curriculum developers and policy makers about the gaps in current education program, in current special education program, especially in teaching practice and resources of special needs education. So by using the findings, the curriculum developers as well as the policy makers can come out with more suitable educational materials and effective ways to enhance teacher training and curriculum development of special needs students.
Okay, moving on for the literature review. So for the literature review, I'll be covering on three themes. The first one is in terms of challenges. Second is teaching approaches and strategies. And the last part is going to be like the reading skills of special needs students. So we're moving on for the first part, which is the challenges. So teaching ESL to special needs students comes with many challenges as cited by several studies. So Hashim et al. 2021 point out that students with ESD or autism spectrum disorder struggle with social and language difficulties in ESL learning. So because of this, they need individualized support to help them succeed. Similarly, by Rahajang et al. 2024 mentioned that the lack of resources and the need for different teaching methods make ESL instruction harder. So on top of that, teachers have to put in extra effort to adjust lesson plans, which requires flexibility in the curriculum. So apart from that, teaching struggles, there are also bigger challenges in the system. So as highlighted by UPA and Umbatu 2020, explain that teachers deal with heavy workload and students' behavior issues making their jobs even harder. So they also highlight that the lack of acceptance from society affects how well special needs students can learn. When it comes to dyslexia, Lim Yu and Handayani 2022 find that many special education teachers don't have a proper training in dyslexia and don't get enough resources from the Ministry of Education and OE, making it difficult to support these students. Allam and Martin 2021 also talk about the lack of training and resources, which make it tough for teachers to provide individualized instruction. On top of that, they mentioned that teachers don't get enough support from school administrators and there aren't enough structured programs to help them. So overall, these studies show that ESL teachers for special needs students face big challenges, including lack of training, limited resources, and little support. So this issue need to be addressed to improve learning for these students. So moving on for the second part, which is in terms of the strategies. So for strategies, teaching ESL for the special needs require flexible and effective strategies. So there are a few resources. The first one is by Hashim et al. Highlight that students with ASD struggle with social and language challenges. So teachers use visual aid, structured repetition, and assistive method to support them. And Hajin also mentioned emphasize curriculum flexibility using the Merdeka curriculum, project-based learning for engagement, total physical response, PPR for speech impairments, and contextual teaching and learning, CDL for slow learners. Beyond teaching method, teacher motivation is crucial. So we have OPA and Ambato 2020. We note that motivation comes from both personal patient and external support, and they stress the value of audiovisual material in enhancing learning. So similarly, Lani et al. 2025 support that multi-modal learning, combining visual and auditory elements, and highlighting how social and cultural factors shape teaching approaches. For students with dyslexia, Lim Yu and Handayani 2022 suggest multi-sensory learning such as hands-on activities, color-coded materials, and assistive technologies like reading pen and mobile learning app. Okay, for the next part, which is the reading skills. So teacher reading skills actually to special needs students comes with unique challenges as highlighted by Ahmad Ali and Salehuddin cited in 2018. First, Many of the students with dyslexia struggle with reading fluency, spelling, and sentence construction. So because of this, they often get placed in lower performing classes, which can really hurt their confidence and motivations. Second, their personalities and learning preference vary widely. Some are talkative and expressive, while others are quiet and withdrawn. Teachers also notice that many special needs students prefer listening and speaking activities over reading and writing, making traditional literacy instructions more difficult. Lastly, these students require extra attention and support to stay engaged in learning. One-to-one instruction and personalized strategies are essential in helping them improve their learning skills. So overall, the study highlights the need for more effective teaching methods and better support systems to ensure that special needs students don't fall behind in literacy development. So that's about it from me on my part for the conceptual and literacy and literature review. So I'll moving on for next part with my partner, NASUHA. Thank you. Assalamualaikum dan selamat sejahtera. My name is Fatihah GHAZALI. So for today, I'll be covering on conceptual framework and also literature review. So for the first part, for the conceptual framework, our group has chosen for UDL, or known as Universal Design for Learning, which is a teaching framework that ensures that all students, including those with special needs, can access and engage in learning effectively. So it focuses on three key principles: engagement, representation, and action and expression. So for the first principle, engagement, it focuses on why students learn, uses different strategies to keep students motivated, such as choices, interactive activities, and real-world connection. For the second principle, which is the representation, focuses on what students learn, presents content in multiple ways, either visual, auditory, hands-on, to accommodate different learning needs. And the third principle, which is the action and expression, it highlighted on the how students show learning. It allows students to demonstrate understanding in various ways like presentation, drawing, or assistive technology. So UDL promotes flexibility in teaching, removing barriers to learning, and making education more inclusive. So there was an article from our research by Saini et al. 2024 highlight that when teachers apply strategies based on UDL, they can actually significantly enhance the learning abilities and knowledge of students with intellectual disabilities. So by applying UDL, teachers actually can create a more inclusive classroom where all students, especially those with special needs, can learn in a way that works best for them. So this framework aligns well with our research as it supports individualized learning and removes barriers that often prevent special needs students from succeeding in literacy development. So that cover up for the conceptual framework. So I'll moving on with the literature review.
Thank you, Hajar. Now I will explain to you about the methodology of our study. So first thing first, for the research methodology, we are going to use qualitative research approach. So by using this approach, it allows us to explore the ESL teachers' experience, understand their challenges, as well as find out the strategies used by them when teaching mixed ability students in becoming independent readers. For the research design, in this study, we are going to use narrative inquiry design using oral history, meaning that we are going to collect and analyze the data, such as the stories and the experience of ESL teachers through semi-structured interviews. For the research setting, for this study, we are going to conduct at the private special needs center located in Seremban. So why we are choosing special needs center, private special needs center, it is because based on our previous readings in previous studies, most of the studies are focusing on the government special needs schools. So there are limited research focusing on the private special needs schools. So that's why in our study, we are going to focus on private special needs center. As for the research participants, we are going to interview 4 teachers from that private special needs center, and these teachers have first-hand experience working with special needs students for a long time. Last but not least, for the research instruments, in this study, we are going to collect the data by using semi-structured interview. And as for the interview questions, we have discussed and come up with 7 questions to answer both of our research questions. So for the research procedures and interview questions, it will be explained by my friend ATIQAH.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and a very good day to Dr. Azrina. My name is NURUL BINTI RAMLI. Okay, for our proposal presentation entitled the Rise of the Unheard, an oral history of ESL teachers' challenges and strategies in enhancing independent reading skills for special needs students, I am going to present research procedures and also the research questions. So firstly, the data collection method that we are going to employ for this particular study is semi-structured interview. So before we start with our interview session, we are going to brief the participants. There are 4 of us, so there will be 4 participants altogether. So we are going to give them a consent form to ensure that they are participating in this interview session without any force. And secondly, we are going to we are going to brief them about the private and confidentiality of these studies, which means the data that we are going to analyze from this particular interview will not be publicly shared in terms of the participants' names and also the subject of the study. And since the interview will be transcribed and analyzed later on, so it will be audio recorded. So an audio recorder will be placed during the interview session, right? So for the data that we are going to get from this interview, we are going to analyze using thematic analysis. So there are 6 steps of thematic analysis as outlined by Brown and Clark. So the 6 steps include familiarization with the data. Secondly, generating initial codes. Thirdly, searching for themes, reviewing themes, defining and naming themes, and writing the report. So thematic analysis will be used to identify the code and theme having the highest frequency being spoken by the participants during the interview, which means after we have done with our interview session, we are going to analyze the audio recording, and we are going to see which part of the interview, which answers, which code of answers emerge the most. So we are going to use that as one of our codes, and we are going to run through all 6 steps before finalizing the code and themes. So this is research ethics. As I said before, written informed consent will be given before we start with our interview session. Secondly, confidentiality and anonymity. We are going to use pseudonyms or participant codes for all 4 participants involved in this semi-structured interview. Thirdly, sensitivity to special needs context. We are going to avoid stigmatizing language because in this paper, during this semi-structured interview, there are going to be a lot of mentions of several disorders or syndromes such as autism, Down syndrome, maybe some other disorders and syndromes that we are not aware of before this. So we are going to avoid stigmatizing um, the conditions itself. Non-bias and objectivity. Lastly, data protection, secured and protected database which can only be accessed by group members. So we are also going to inform the participants that the data gained from this semi-structured interview will be solely used for the purpose of this study, and it will not be manipulated or used for any other contexts which are not appropriate. Okay, so these are the interview questions. First question that will answer our first RQ is, what are the challenges encountered when teaching reading for special needs students? So we are going to ask the participants throughout their experience of teaching these special needs students, what kind of challenges that they have faced before this, and what kind of turbulences that they have to dealt with before this. Um, so maybe this is going to be in our coding as well. Secondly, what specific strategies or techniques do you use to support independent reading for special needs students? So for this particular question, we are expecting answers that will play around the differentiation of uh, learning strategies. Say, for example, maybe the participants will answer something like they are using differentiation in terms of time, or maybe differentiation in tasks. Because in one class, their proficiency and their proficiency in reading is different. It varies because their disorders or syndromes are not the same, right? So their ability to read also vary. So maybe the teachers are using differentiation in terms of time. Say, for example, they are giving the same kind of reading text but different duration for the students to read through and answer the questions. So this is also expected to be in our coding later on. So for the third question, do you practice differentiation in learning strategy, time and tasks in tackling your diverse learners' proficiency? So I think this is actually a supplementary question from question number 2. Number 4, how do you assess or track the progress of your students' independent reading skill? This is to answer RQ1 and RQ2, because we would like to see how does this teacher assess their students' progress, because they have 4 levels of classes. So in order for them to progress to a higher level of class, they have to first graduate from the from the previous class. So one of the criteria that they have to fulfill is reading. So we would like to see how do they assess, how do they track the progress of their students' independent reading skill. Fifth question is, do you use different teaching aids and learning materials to cater to your students' reading skills? So maybe these teachers are using different kind of reading materials that we are not aware of before this, or maybe they are using any teaching aids that could aid with their students' reading needs, right? And for the sixth question, how do you adapt reading materials to diverse special needs students? So this particular institution that we are going to interview the teachers at, they have their own curricular framework, and this curricular framework, we are not familiar with this curricular framework. So maybe they have their own reading materials that they have to modify, or they have to work with to ensure that it will be suitable for their students. And last question is, where did you get the access to the reading materials for special needs students? So the justification for this question is that when we are teaching in a mainstream school for mainstream students, we can always go online and get our reading materials online, and we don't have to almost do nothing with it, and we can always distribute it to students for them to answer. But for these special needs students, they are maybe say, for example, they need some kind of other interventions before to that reading text before it is handed to them. Maybe the teachers need to opt out some paragraph, or maybe the teachers need to modify the language used. What level of language is suitable for these students. So this is the aim of this question. We would like to see where this teacher get the reading materials from and what kind of interventions do they do to these reading materials. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.